Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of Where I Went Wrong. And in this edition, I'll be doing Where I Went Wrong for UFC Vegas 35, Barboza versus Chikadze. So with this card, there was not really a lot of areas where I went wrong. Matter of fact, I would say confidently with my full chest that I did not go wrong anywhere on this card. So I went 8-4, pretty solid. It's not, well, matter of fact, I would say this is a pretty solid card. Maybe you want to get to 9-3, maybe you want to get to 10-2, but 8-4 is pretty solid. So I feel like I went pretty solid on this card. I feel like my predictions fell pretty well. And I don't feel like it's in the case of anything where it was like a glaring error to pick any of the picks that I did pick for this card. And like results were good, the picks were good, my thoughts and logic behind it were solid. And even beyond logic, it was very solid picks. But yeah, with most of the predictions, I feel like it was either just coming down to it is MMA, it's unpredictable in a way, and also a lot of these fights I feel came down to, well, like half the fights were like it is MMA, MMA going MMA and stuff is going to be unpredictable. And some of the fights it was like half and half, and then like the other half was fighters. It wasn't a case of their opponent or it being such a bad pick or being bad this or it being so MMA being so unpredictable. It was a case of that these fighters just didn't make the best decisions in the fight, and that cost. So like it literally was having that. It was two fighters that, MMA, it's going MMA. Like it'd be a very close fight. It went to decision. It was a fight where two fighters that have heavy hands, one fighter caught the other fighter, or heavy hands or heavy feet. And you already know where I'm going with that. So it could have went either way, and it went the other way. It was very quick, one shot. So that was that half. Then you had the half where one guy like he had all the advantages, but kind of got sloppy and maybe a little bit overconfident, and that overconfidence allowed him to get hurt and give a position, get tapped out. Another guy entertained the ground too much. Like he feel like it looked like from a very short fight that he had a huge advantage on the feet. Actually, it seemed like he hurt the guy and had the position on the ground, but played the ground too much, and then played on the ground too much and got tapped out. So like, a case of poor fight IQ in a way, in MMA being MMA, or one of those fights was a close fight on the other side, but. To start the card off and start to not the predictions, but start off the the recap and run through it real quick. So the catchweight first fight we had was in the catchweight division, 140. We had Martinez versus Guido Connetti, and this fight played out pretty like I thought. Except it wasn't a stop or anything. I picked Martinez in one, got a victory in this one, but I just feel like Martinez was a little bit gun shy and didn't let his hands go enough. Maybe because his coach died, or maybe he was just really trying to win and not get caught. And try to play it safe a little bit. He got the win. I feel like he deserved to win and all that, but I feel like he's going to need to take a slower route as far as in the UFC, get some wins on his belt. He's a young guy, needs to get those, he needs to get that experience underneath his belt. Guido Connetti impressed me in a loss. I feel like he can actually probably stick around the UFC and get some wins in there, but ultimately I feel like he's still going to be like a lower end fighter. I don't feel like he's going to be able to rise up in the division. I feel like the upper echelon, not even the upper echelon, but the guy that's been more seasoned and been around the division enough, still going to run through him. But maybe he might be good for these entry-level guys and take out a couple entry-level fighters. But yeah, I feel like he can hang around for a couple more years. Even though he's 40 and 41, I feel like he can hang around. So both guys impressed me. But Guido Connetti, Guido Connetti just needs to hang around lower end. I don't see him really rising up or really challenge too many people. But at lower end, he might be able to pull off some victories against those people. And the entry-level people, like the people debuting, he might be able to pull off some victories against them. Martinez needs to take it slow and, build up that experience. But I feel like I see some good skill set from him. But again, needs to get his feet wet a little bit more, or a lot bit more. Then we had the next fight we had in the featherweight division. I lost this one. We had Sabatini versus Jamal Emmers. In this one, like Jamal Emmers seemed like he hurt him or really connected well early and was able to mount him. But the fight was relatively short. He played the top position too much. He played the grapple too much. And when Sabatini went for a hook, like a heel hook or a leg submission, I say leg submission, but went for a submission, he went leg lock for leg lock with him, and that's not the smart thing. The smart thing to do would be address the submission attempt and just like work to defend it and work to get back to standing. And his whole main focus should have been to keep it standing. I felt like he had a huge advantage on the feet and did not exercise it. He played it too much on the ground, and that ultimately caused him to get submitted. And we've seen this happen with Carl Roberson and Brendan Allen. Like, why even go heel hook for heel hook? Just work on defending submission and getting back to your feet. But not the smartest decision. But as far as these two right here, I would say Sabatini. As much as I'm impressed with his win, I'm not all that impressed. I feel like a more impressed win if he would outstruck him, score takedowns, and really fought like a real solid fight. Like outstruck him, out wrestled him, and then tapped him out or something, or just fought Al Russell, out struck and beat him to a decision, and that would have been impressive. But in this fight, a lot of it you also got factored in what was Emmers thinking. So it's not the greatest, like, oh, he did such a great clean performance. It also was like almost given to him in a way. I mean, he took advantage of it. It's not like nobody gave him the fight, but he definitely played too much with fire and it got burnt. So on Emmers' side, but impressed with Sabatini. I feel like Emmers just got to go back and really look back at the fight and see that it was very much a winnable fight and a fight he should have won, but didn't make the right decision in the fight, and hopefully go back to the wheelhouse or go back to the workshop, come back better. But I definitely think both guys got high hopes. I mean, a lot of promise in their careers and can still keep building. And I don't think this one's gonna set that the loss gonna set back Emmers too much. And I think Sabatini is gonna be able to go advance further. But both guys I think still roughly in the same pool. I don't think it'll jump either guy like so far down or so far up, but still relatively in the same pool and still with a lot of potential on both sides. Next fight we had in the women's flyweight division, Ulrich versus Demopoulos. And that fight played out just like I thought. Demopoulos just was not as clean of a striker as Ulrich, and Ulrich was just a more experienced, more polished, more clean fighter. And for like the smarter, sharper, more disciplined fight and shut her out on the decision. So that fight went as I expected. Purely decision, victory, just as I expected. The next fight we had in the light heavyweight division, Jacoby versus Stewart. Or Darren Stewart. And this fight played out how I thought. I think I said second or third round stoppage, I forget, but I said stoppage either way. And it was a little bit unexpected. I think the stoppage was a little bit earlier than I thought it would be. I thought maybe a little bit later in the fight. And I didn't think Stewart would have as much success with wrestling as he did. Even though he didn't have any true real success with his wrestling, he did score like 2 takedowns, so give him a lot more success than I thought as far as actually scoring takedowns. But as far as control and doing anything with the takedowns, I think he did just about as much as I thought he would, which was not much at all. So that fight went as I expected. As far as Stewart, I don't feel like he's a true light heavyweight. I feel like he might be. Matter of fact, I don't really think he really pick up any wins at light heavyweight unless they give him like a real lower end guy or somebody. I don't know. He's good enough to pick up a win, but I don't think this is his division. Is all I'm saying. I think middleweight's his best division. I think he should go back down. As far as Jacoby, I think Jacoby has very high hopes in this division. I'm not saying him as like no future champion in this weight class, but I do see him as a potential future title challenger. I do see good promise there, and he could definitely start advancing up the rankings or challenging for the rankings right now. I think he has all the skills and he got a good bit of wins behind him now. So Jacoby started putting him on the fast track, and Stewart needs to go back and down the weight as I see it, or unless he just want to be a mechanism to challenge up and coming fighters or these younger prospects. But that's all I see him doing at light heavyweight. At middleweight, I see him potentially being around the lower end of the rankings, but at light heavyweight I don't see that at all. And then we go up. And then we have in the middleweight division, Welton Thurman versus Sam Albee. In this fight, I picked Welton Thurman by decision. It was a close decision as I expected. But Welton Thurman had a lot more success with his takedown than I thought. I didn't think he would get a single takedown. I thought there would be more cage control time, but actually just more striking. But yeah, like Sam Albee just on the downtrend, and when he starts to lose, it starts to become a snowfall, and he lost again. So it was just easier to lean to Welton Thurman. But yeah, Welton Thurman got back on his horse. Was able to grind out a decision on the feet mostly and beat Albee. Now, Albee, like I said, Albee's a slower fighter that tries to be a counter fighter, so I guess there's plenty of opens to beat him on the feet. Because like I said, a slower fighter trying to be a counter fighter is not the best thing unless their timing just so remarkable. But yeah, Sam Albee, I feel like his retirement should be his next option. Welton Thurman just saved his UFC spot for now, and that's about it. I think really any fight for Welton Thurman at this point works for him. Like any fight on the lower end. Definitely don't want to push him up too high, but I mean, maybe they use him as a mechanism to get a fighter that's on the higher end back in the win column. But other than that, I think really at this point, Welton Thurman just saved his career. So I mean, his UFC career. So any fight for him at this point makes sense to an extent. Either as a tune-up fight for somebody, or just a challenge for an up-and-coming fighter, or just another guy falling off on him. Like lower end or a tune-up is what's next for Welton Thurman. And now the next fight we had in the middleweight division, Abdul Razak Al-Hassan versus Alessio Dichirico. In this fight, definitely was a fight I wasn't the most confident in and went the other way. Al-Hassan got the knockout via head kick in the first round, so the head kick curse carries on first from Buckley, knocked what's his name out? Impa Kasanganai out, and then Chichiro knocked out Joaquin Buckley with a head kick, and now Dichirico gets knocked out by a head kick from Abdul Razak Al-Hassan. So then I guess the next thing that happens is Abdul Razak Al-Hassan's going to get knocked out with a head kick in his next fight. But we'll see how this goes. But very unpredictable fight. We know Al-Hassan is a first round fighter, and he got him out in the first round. So what does it really say? Hasn't said a whole lot new about Al-Hassan, but he gets a win in the first round once again. That's when you're dealing with power, and that's to happen. Like, you get caught in that first round, you very much likely to get knocked out, but you can get out of that first round. Maybe it will say something new, but really this fight didn't say nothing really new. Everybody get knocked out. Al-Hassan has the power to knock anyone out. He's a first round fighter, and he got a first round knockout. So we ain't really saying like a whole lot new for either guy or anything. But I think this is Dichirico's first knockout loss. So good win. I mean, good feather for Al-Hassan, but it don't say nothing really new about him, to be honest. So this fight ain't say a whole lot. I don't think it really moves any guy either way. I don't think Al-Hassan's gonna really make no big statements in this weight class. I mean, it's a big win for him, but I don't think he's gonna go on and start sticking wins together against really good competition. I think he's gonna end up in the same spot he kind of was at welterweight. So really, at middleweight or welterweight, I see the same thing for him. Maybe even less at middleweight. Dichirico, I mean, he already has been a middle of the pack or lower end fighter. So for both of them, anyone lower end or middle end or to be used as a tune-up works for both guys. Win or loss would work with both guys. And now onto the main card we had in the middleweight division, Gerard versus Macmillan Murradoff. And in this fight, I picked Murradoff, and it was a big upset. And this is like one of the fights I really can't really be low on myself about at all, like zero at all. I feel like Macmillan Murradoff had all the advantages in this one, but he got a little bit overconfident, probably feel undefeatable. And he got sloppy to start swinging these loopy shots, leaning his head back, and Machar, he's getting rocked and hurt. He was walking through those shots, and then he started to touch him, and then Murradoff started to fatigue and get tired, and eventually he started to get even sloppier, and Machar capitalized on him, and then was eventually able to tap him out. So I feel like if really on his side, I just think when he has people hurt, yes, I mean, at no point really swinging loopy shots like that should be okay with you, but it works for him, has been working for him. But I think it has to be a case when you have your opponent hurt and you're hurting him that much as he was hurting Machar with every single shot. I think when you start having to hurt, you don't keep swinging loopy shots. Then you allow them to get back, like, because you're swinging so wide that they're able to recover because you're missing. Instead of once you already have them hurt, then you start putting those short shots together and you stay on them instead of swinging these big loopy shots. And you don't tire yourself out as much. And the finish is already there. It's materialized because you just right there land those clean short shots. And he has so much of a speed advantage that he gets away with these wide looping shots. But if he just did short shots, he really would have a significant, like even more significant speed advantage. Because he can land those real clean counters at almost much less distance, much less windup, and much less reads on them. But and then on Macmillan, it's like really this fight is all Macmillan Murradoff's fault, or really all the blame falls on him and his coaching staff. For real. But I think he still has a lot of talent, a lot of skill. We just gotta go back to the tool house, take a lesson, take a loss, and grow from it, and know that now he knows that he's not invincible. I still think he has a good future ahead of him, but I definitely think his star has dwindled a lot. As far as Machar, good win for him, but I don't really think he's going to have no bright future ahead of him. He can definitely pull off some upsets, but I still think he's very much who he is before, and I think the upper echelon and the better people in the division is not going to play with him. They're going to put him out. They're not going to be doing all that sloppy stuff with him. They're just going to put him out. That's all I'm see. But definitely get a step up. I think he can definitely get a big name in the next fight and see how he does in that one. So maybe a top 15 opponent, I think, is in his future. As far as Macmillan Murradoff, got to take a step back and maybe fight an unranked fighter, or even a lower end fighter, and get it back in the win column and restate his claim, and reposition himself back in the division or back into relevance. Next fight we had in the middleweight division, Petrovsky versus Michael Gilmore. And this fight kind of went as I expected. I think it went a little bit longer than I expected, and I think it was a TKO instead of a submission. But just as I saw, Gilmore doesn't have the best wrestling defense, and you're going against a wrestler, a striker versus a wrestler, and the striker don't have the best wrestling defense. So what's going to happen? The striker, and it's not like the striker wasn't even the best talent. So the wrestler was the better talent, and stylistically was the better fighter, and had less issues with what the other guy brought. And what he did, put him on the mat consistently, and then was able to break him down and stop him in the third round. So that went relatively as much as I expected. So win in that column. Then the next fight we had was, let me go back to him. As far as that Petrovsky, I feel like Gilmore probably going to leave the UFC, or they're going to just use him as a mechanism to give some other guy a win. And as far as Petrovsky, they're probably going to test him a little bit. But I feel like a lower end guy, but test him against a lower end guy, or maybe test him against a veteran who's maybe needs a win, and see like whether he'll be able to pass that test, or whether a veteran will be able to stick around, a type of fight for him next. But lower end regardless. Then to the next fight we had in the welterweight division, Daniel Rodriguez versus Kevin Lee. And how I saw that fight, I saw pretty much how it was, but I thought the third round stop is what happened for Rodriguez. Yes, Kevin Lee came out good in the first round as I expected, and I thought he'd be a little bit stronger in the second round as well. But maybe through the first part, and it kind of was. And then after that, around the mid part, Rodriguez started to take away. In the third round, he just completely took it away, but wasn't able to get a stoppage. Like, I thought it would be a stoppage in the third round, but he wasn't able to make that stoppage materialize. So pretty close, and went just about as I expected, minus the stoppage. Like, there was no stoppage. But as far as Rodriguez, bright future ahead of him, I think like they really should start pushing him up the rankings and start giving him the better competition in the divisions. Really start pushing them up those ranks, top 15, top 10. I think he definitely belongs among them, and definitely on a good winning streak. And like really should start pushing that guy. And Kevin Lee, I really feel like he should go back to lightweight and really just focus on becoming a better overall mixed martial artist instead of worrying about the weight class. It's not about the weight class. It's about becoming a better mixed martial artist. And I don't think 170 is his weight class, to be honest. And I think he got to work on just his fight strategies and his pacing or whatever to work with his strengths and weaknesses out there. But yeah. Then on to our next fight we had in the bantamweight division, Ricky Turcios versus Brady Highstand. And I can't really take too much from this fight either. Ricky Turcios, for how I expect him to fight, he's a very aggressive, very active fighter. Takes a lot of risks. And you got Brady Highstand, a very strong grappler. I feel like his striking has improved. But I guess the one thing I can say is I try to reach a little bit too much with Brady Highstand and expect him to close those gaps and be better. And he did close them, but not enough. And it still was a close fight. But Ricky Turcios, ultimately, his pace and activity beat out Highstand's grappling and control. So I put a little too much investment into a potential future and growth from Highstand in that one. But all in all, I'm impressed with both guys, but I'm still thinking the same way. I'm not super high on them really to do much in the division at this given moment. But Highstand, with his skill and his improvement, I think he can stick around. But I don't think Turcios is going to stick around too long. I feel like a lot of people are going to take advantage of him, really. And there's an over-aggressiveness in the division, like the better, more proven guys. And I feel like once you come off the Ultimate Fighter, they're not going to just give you the same push as other guys. They're going to give you a quicker push. And yeah, but pressed, but still needed to see a lot more from both guys. Now on to our next fight we had in the middleweight division, our co-main event, Bryan Battle versus Gilbert Urbina. And this fight went basically how I predicted. I think second round, I don't know if I predicted TKO or submission, but I predicted a second round stoppage in this one, I believe. But don't quote me on that. But I predicted this one for Battle without, wherever the case may be, an end by stoppage. So that one went correctly. But how I feel about this one is, I felt Gilbert Urbina brought it to him much more than I expected. I thought it would be almost a walkover case. Not a walkover. I thought it would be a cleaner performance from Bryan Battle, but it was very competitive. But eventually Bryan Battle was able to take advantage of the over-aggression, like, a slip of Urbina, capitalize, and then be able to tap him out in the second round. But it was definitely a much more competitive fight. I knew Urbina would bring it. Battle would be able to handle it better, and he did handle it. He did get a stoppage, but I thought it would be cleaner. I thought it would be clear, like, he won the first, won the second, like Peter beat him every single round. And this looked like the better guy, but Urbina definitely brought it. But as far as how I feel about these guys, I feel like if they were on the Contender Series, I feel like Dana White would give them developmental contracts. Like, go back out to the UFC, maybe spend a year or two more outside the UFC, build up some wins, get some more experience. Because I don't really see them as UFC caliber just yet. I mean, they probably are going to stick around and pick up some wins. Probably, especially you get some good style matchups, or you give them some lower ranked guys, or some guys that just enter into the UFC, or just bring some guys from outside the UFC to give them a test, like from the lower end. But as far as like the guys really cemented in this division, I don't really see them doing much at all to those people just yet. I just see those people just running right over them at this given moment. But younger fighters, take some time with them and they can impress you. But right now, I'm not really all too impressed with either of them. But definitely lower end at the moment. Then on to our main event we had in the featherweight division, Giga Chikadze, Essen Barboza versus Giga Chikadze. And this one I picked Giga Chikadze. I don't know if it was by third or fourth round TKO, but either way, pretty close, pretty much on the money, and pretty much how I saw it going. And yeah, just when this how it's going. What else can I really say? Chikadze was there to fight at distance. He had to fight, like these other guys that had to necessarily crowd Barboza to beat him. But Chikadze just as much of a kickboxer. His kickboxing skills are just as high, or his striking skills are just as high as Barboza's, if not more. In this fight, proves it. So it should be more. He's a higher level striker, and so he could fight at his range. He fought at range and was sniping Barboza, was like slamming those heavy kicks to the body, those heavy liver kicks, switching stances, being creative. And like I said, I feel like he was going to be the guy that's going to play the chess match better and be the final shots over the top, final shots down the middle, not be stationary, fight at range, but don't fight, let's sit in at range like a hooker would, like, you know, not a hooker, but Darren Hooker. I said Darren Hooker, like Dan Hooker, not just sitting at range, but constantly moving, being at range, but not sitting at range. Like, just because are sitting at the end of your reach, like you're already long, but still you gotta move lateral. You can't just sit flat-footed at the back, out at the end, because people gonna step through and land on you. And he did a good job constantly moving, switching stances, giving him different looks, and eventually started to find his own shots. Without striking him at range, and pretty much beat him at all the ranges of this fight. One thing I will give about Barboza, and like, he might have been able to change the course of history with those body shots, those hooks to the body, if he did them a little bit more. Like, because it seemed like every single time he did them, he got an instant reaction from Chikadze more than the liver kicks from, like, more than his body kicks to more than SM Barboza's body kicks. The body shots from Barboza were having more effect on Chikadze than anything, I guess, because you could see the kind of the hip line, like, getting loaded up a little bit. Even though Barboza is as fast as he is, you could kind of see the hips being loaded up for those kicks. But those body shots were very sneaky, you know, always effective. And I don't feel like Chikadze was best prepared to defend them, but I don't think Barboza stayed committed to them enough. I think he do like 4 or 5 of them. Every single one of them had a good reaction, but he didn't throw as many as he probably would have wanted to have. And I think more of those could have definitely changed the course of the fight, but on Barboza's side. But ultimately, like I said, I feel like the fight went just as I thought it to be, chalked it up to be, predicted to be. So on the money right there, solid prediction right there. Can't really say much about it negatively or positively, but went on the money with that one. But as far as both their future careers, where they should go, I feel like Barboza could fight a Sodiq Yusuff or Hakeem Dawood, or maybe Calvin Kattar. That would be those good fights for him. Those other guys, like, a step down. Calvin Kattar is higher up in the ranks, and he coming off a loss as well, so that would be a exciting strikers matchup. So that would definitely be a matchup that would be good for him. On the other side, I feel like Giga Chikadze should fight Max Holloway, or fight Korean Zombie, or really anyone that's going to get him near a title shot. So I feel like he should be 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot. So, or he could wait around, and only beating Barboza is not going to guarantee him a title shot. So he needs one more win at least. So a Max Holloway win could get him a title shot. Korean Zombie fight could get him waiting for a title shot. But a Max Holloway win would definitely get him a title shot if he beats Max Holloway, especially in dominant fashion. So I think Max Holloway should be one of his fights next. But I'm hearing Max Holloway trying to go up 155, or, you know, what he's doing. And also he has 2 losses to the current champion Volkanovski. So he might not even be winning around, you know, wanting to take the most dangerous matchups, to be honest. Because it's not like it's going to guarantee him a immediate title shot. But also, these big risky fights can be what give him a 3rd shot at Volkanovski. Because if he could beat dominate the other people, then it leaves no choice but to give him a 3rd match. And also, it's not like the second match wasn't so close. And really, on some people, it was boxing standards and etc. etc. Max Holloway would have won that fight. But yeah, very close fight. So it's not like he got dominated by Volkanovski in the second fight, or even the first fight. And the second fight was really extremely close. So it's very much has a good case to challenge for a title, especially if he puts the wins behind him for a 3rd time. So yeah, the Max Holloway fight or the Korean Zombie fights are definitely the ones sticking out to me. Or maybe even a wild card like Brendan Allen. I said Brendan Allen, but I'm forgetting the guy's name. But Arnold Allen, not Brendan Allen. Arnold Allen, that'd be a potential one. But Arnold Allen's not nearly up in the ranking just yet. So it'd be a wild card, but I don't think that's the fight that's going to get him a title fight. So I'm thinking Korean Zombie or Max Holloway for him. And that really is what my predictions come. Well, my event recap goes down to my prediction recap for this and where I went wrong. I don't really feel I went wrong really anywhere on this card, to be honest. I can't really take a whole lot of necessarily take too much digs at myself for any picks I made on this card. And yeah, that's my recap. Went 8-4, feel pretty solid on it, and feel like I'm just gonna keep getting better and better and getting back on my groove. And I'll say another good card put behind me. So that's the video. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and come back for more videos. Peace.